I think we are live now.
Okay.
Yeah, we are live. So,
Good.
hello everyone.
So this is being streamed on YouTube?
Yeah, this is being streamed on YouTube and also on X.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah.
So do we get notifications when people ask us questions, or you have to monitor the channel separately?
Yep. Yeah, we won't get any notifications, but we can read the comments and
Okay.
they can ask the questions. But let's
Okay.
let's start with the discussions of the events first.
Okay.
Events of the week first. Okay, let's first of all let's start with that arrest that happened.
Yeah. Are we talking about the Mahmoodabad?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can
Uh,
read the comments here.
sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah. Let's start with the event first. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what he said was actually nothing. It was actually pretty tame by any standards. So I think it's pretty ridiculous that, first the Commission for Women sent him notice to appear, and then later on there was an arrest warrant issued. I mean, this is very arbitrary, and even if you take the law, I mean, right now in the Indian constitution, we don't have obviously an unlimited amount of free speech, or even a reasonably wide degree. But even going by the restrictions there, nothing he said would actually qualify. So one, it is pretty crazy that he got arrested, and now even the judges making statements like he should have been more careful or not use words that have double meaning. It's just crazy that the amount of policing that the government is interested in free speech is always a problem, because tomorrow, every time the party change, somebody else from the opposing side will anyway get arrested, and then every party makes a lot of hue and cry about constitutional values, right to free speech, right to dissent, but all of them are equally trampling on this. And obviously, the main reason for this has been that the First Amendment, has increased the amount of restrictions. So, in the Article 19(2). So, since then, one, we don't have a quick escape when the courts rule that something is not reasonable, or some offensive speech. So definitely in the long term, we need to restore the Indian Constitution's 19 to what it was before, or we should actually do much better and switch to what the US has in terms of the First Amendment. Till we make significant reform on that, cases like this will keep happening. And it's not just about Mahmoodabad. Abhijit Iyer Mitra also got called up by the courts because he posted some slightly abusive tweets about some women journalists who work for one of the news agencies. I believe he called them prostitutes. Again, obviously, if you have if you're in a civilized society which respects free speech, even abuse is actually considered free speech. I mean, obviously, socially, you can condemn that and say that's not the way you should be talking. But the government should have no right to police or do it. In fact, the court also ordered him first to take down the tweets. I mean, if the tweets were found to have violated free speech, then the court should make a determination. But instead of that, first they said first you should take down the tweets immediately. So yeah, the whole thing is a circus, and there is no easy way out of this. Obviously, at the Libertarian Party, we are for unrestricted free speech, and only when certain speech is about to incite imminent lawless action and imminent violence, only that can be considered a moral grounds to restrict any speech. But otherwise, any sort of abuse, any sort of what is conventionally called as hate speech, which is largely a speech that one particular group doesn't like, should be allowed. I don't see any reason why we should keep infringing on the rights of Indian citizens to speak their minds and express their opinions. Tushar, I think you're muted.
Yeah, someone is asking the question, what do you think about the Rohingya problem?
What do I think about the Rohingya problem? Now, I consider, see, Rohingyas are obviously a persecuted group of people. And, I mean, it's very complicated. It's not that Rohingyas, I mean, see, as the libertarians, we personally prefer talking about things from a very individual perspective. So it is always about who has done a crime, but not an entire group of people. But if you look at the history, there has been a lot of conflict between the Rohingyas and the local ethnic populations there, various groups, whether it be the Buddhists and all. So now, obviously, a lot of them are being driven out of the country. Now the question is, what should in a libertarian society, how would we address this problem? See, the libertarians on positions when it comes to immigration, we believe that the state should not infringe the free movement of people unless, of course, there is an issue of a security threat. For example, if you have Lashkar-e-Toiba guys who want to just cross the border, obviously we would not want to allow that. Or if there are like people with criminal records, then also you wouldn't want the state to, because right now it is the state's responsibility to control the borders and also protect us against enemies external. So when people are coming in, I think it is fair and reasonable to make sure that these people pose no threat to uh, to people here. I mean, you don't want people coming here and doing any sort of terrorist or criminal activities. So now the question is, how do we distinguish? Like even this case also comes up like when we talk about Pakistan. We had people from Pakistan come, like for example, Adnan Sami is there. For example, if Adnan Sami was just like randomly crossing the border and come to India, then if you stop him, the way to judge him is the criminal threat. You obviously do background checks. You then do it. But there are sometimes issues when there is a huge amount of refugee population that is just flooding across the borders. At which point of time, I believe a more pragmatic solution is to have some sort of a refugee camp near the border, because obviously as a human society, if somebody is killing somebody, right, could have been Jews during World War II or anybody, we don't want the other people to slaughter it. That's what we did when Pakistanis were slaughtering Bangladeshis and killing them. We actually went and we stopped the slaughter. So to give them some space somewhere near the border, even if it's a bit isolated, so that they can escape the persecution, is fine. After which point of time, filtering and background checks can be done to make sure that there are no threats. And if people want to come to India and want to be peaceful citizens who don't want to engage in violence and want to contribute to the economy, get jobs and work, I don't think there's anything wrong in that. We definitely, I mean, we never know, what sort of workers we need. There's always some issues with labor shortages. Even otherwise, if people can find a job and can contribute, and we have to make sure that absolutely that they're not going to get any benefits, welfare benefits from the state. The government at one point of time claimed that the whole Aadhaar card would be used to determine who gets benefit, but now as we've seen, even the a lot of illegal immigrants have been getting benefits. So there has to be a better, more framework. First of all, as libertarians, we want to eliminate state welfare and benefits, but considering that they already exist today, if immigrants are coming in, there has to be absolute robust mechanism to make sure that they do not get any benefit of state funded initiatives. In over time, obviously, a lot of them will be rolled back. So the primary concerns about immigrations are twofold. One is the security risk. Two is the fact that they're going to leech off the welfare state. So when it comes to leaching of the welfare state, there has to be obviously some monitoring mechanisms and checks, which should actually have already been implemented today. There's a lot of leakage in the freebie schemes. Aadhaar was supposed to actually fix that, it didn't. So we will have to brainstorm about other mechanisms of how we can tone down welfare and restrict it. As for security threats, yes, I believe that the we have enough agencies available. I mean, obviously, we have a lot of intelligence agencies, and they have a quite amount of spending. So I think they should be able to accomplish with background checks who is, and we do that all the time, right? Even when visas are issued to the country, there are checks to make sure that those people are not from any terrorist groups. If sudden flooding is a concern, we can keep them in a buffer zone, isolated, till we are sure that they're safe. Tushar, I think you're muted. I think I can't hear you.
Yeah, most people confuse us with that we are for open borders and all. No, we support easy immigration, but not illegal immigration, because the nature of our enemies, the nature of our neighbors, is a bit different. So we cannot have open borders. We have sort of open borders with Nepal, because there are some cultural overlaps, and similar we have similar thing for Bhutan, but no, other neighbors are a bit different in nature, so we cannot have the same policy with others.
Yeah, I think at least as the Libertarian Party of India, we have acknowledged that the responsibility of the state is to protect against external enemies, take care of the police, the courts. So within this framework, obviously, when people are coming into the country, and the responsibility of screening would obviously lie with the government. And yes, while we believe in like a very individual-based approach, and that is actually what is going to happen as people come in. I mean, we are not saying like remove all the border guards, and it's like hordes of people from Pakistan or Bangladesh can just come rushing in, because the nature of the situation today, that there's a war situation, there's a lot of hostility between countries for various issues. So for pragmatic reasons, I think it is yeah, you need some sort of a controlled defense, because that cannot be delegated right now to the individual level. So yeah, I think when we say open borders, we mean like if
Easy
somebody wants to
immigration.
come and
That
work here,
means
yeah,
easy immigration.
yeah, exactly. That is what we mean by that. We would prefer like
Yeah,
easy
and
immigration. If some
it is to all answer. It is to a question to all the viewers. Do you want to make it difficult for you to move to travel to other countries? And the answer is
yeah.
obviously going to be no. I mean, so many people want to travel to Europe. So many people want to travel to USA and other countries. But all this nonsense visa process, it wastes a whole lot of time. So we
Absolutely.
should.
Like Indians today are like very upset about the sort of regulations and the restrictions that Trump is doing. But if you look at what he's doing, he's not doing anything to screen for security threats. He's basically using the same sort of racist ideas that some people have, that people of certain countries or certain races are bad. These people are criminals or something like that. And it is a very nativist sort of a sentiment, which is bad. Obviously Indians have contributed a lot in the US, like that immigrants historically from different areas, even within India, it has always been that a lot of immigrants have moved to other cities, helped in the development, helped in the growth. So we should start thinking more in terms of human capital migration, instead of just being a little bit more narrow minded. Yes, security threats exist, and there are mechanisms to screen for that, and we are not denying that. At least the Libertarian Party's official stand is we definitely support screening any immigrant coming into the country for security threats. But beyond that, we will definitely not support any biases purely because of a religion or
Yeah,
some ethnic group or anything like that.
yeah, and there should be nothing controversial about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know. A lot of people just, I think, sort of misinterpret libertarian positions on this. And of course, because the term, because when we say open borders, it is largely a reaction to people saying closed borders. So in that sense, it means it, but it's not saying that tomorrow, just like, anybody can come in. At least that's not the Libertarian Party of India view. There are different groups of people having different philosophical views, and those can be discussed. But at least from our point of view as a political party, this is our stance.
Yeah, and next event is we almost escaped the war, and there was a whole lot of jingoism going out, war jingoism going like that. We should enter war and things like that, flatten Pakistan,
And
unrealistic, unrealistic
yeah,
expectations, and and the Pakistani overcorrection. I mean, if, Asim Munir has titled himself as Field Marshal, second in Pakistani history.
Obviously, there was the whole war thing was pretty crazy. So I believe that post the Pahalgam attacks, and like my perspective is that a lot of people said that India did not provide proof for the Pahalgam attacks. I think the Indian government has provided some evidence, but like I don't want to get into the technical details of that because my perspective is that it doesn't really matter and it is largely irrelevant because we have established track record of the Pakistani army and its extension, the terrorists, who have been attacking. We had 26/11, we had proof, we had multiple incidents over the years. We had absolute proof of their involvement, and they've literally done nothing about it. Now, if Pakistan, or even forget Pakistan, let us assume hypothetically, which is not the fact, but say for some reason there are a bunch of terrorists in a camp in Pakistani territory who are preparing to attack India. You think Indian government should not take out take them out? I don't see what the logic is in that, and I think the initial reaction to these whole attacks has been rather measured. It's been
Yeah,
very pinpointed. They've done very precise strikes. I mean, nothing can be 100% precise. This is war. It's not like we're not taking electron microscope and like doing things with that.
yeah.
So
Both
in,
the credit to the government and the army, they have been really professional about
no,
that.
and in fact, like I my fear has always been that governments which are like very sort of right wing and have a lot of nationalistic sentiment, you will probably end up involving the country in some sort of war. And if you probably had to take the opinions of the people who support the party, then we might have actually entered a full-fledged war. But whether it be the military or be the the political party or the command, whoever the prime minister and his team, whoever finally made the call, they were very restrained, and I think it was a good move because it also sends a signal to Pakistan that further attacks on the country will there will be some sort of a retaliation, like because for decades, right, Pakistan has been doing funding these groups, and every time, even after 26/11, we did nothing. So see, it's basically a question of incentives. When bad behavior is allowed to go unpunished, so there will be more and more of that. So, and it is good that the government didn't really escalate it. And I mean, obviously, whatever losses happened, victories happened, the true numbers of that, we don't know. But largely, the consensus has been that Pakistan has taken the bigger hit on this. And so our strategic objectives have been achieved in the sense that Pakistan will now be afraid of taking any other hostile actions, or they will still continue. I don't think that will stop them. But at least now that
Yeah,
the signal has been sent that there are going to be ramifications every time they
and
attack us.
discussion on counter-terrorism operations is entirely different thing. You cannot army cannot be fighting terrorism. It is clearly well
Absolutely.
established.
Absolutely. And see, the other thing is, if the war had escalated, obviously it would have been really bad, both for India and Pakistan. And a lot of people just saying, India should go invade, India should flatten. You can't. One, they are a nuclear power, and two, how many more people would die, right, if we actually entered into a conventional war? There is some point where there is the issue of deterrence, and then there is two about like what are your objectives, like obviously you're not going to get back large chunks of Pakistani territory and integrate into a country, because along with that you will have more insurgent, more terrorists. It's literally like all the camps that we are actually trying to strike in Pakistan will now be a part of us inside the border, and that is going to create a lot more terrorism. So it is unfortunate scenario, but I don't think there is a military solution to this, but probably more economic pressure, and obviously strikes like this on terrorist infrastructure whenever there is an attack or a threat of an attack. This is probably something we could do, and I also like what the Israelis do, where they send people or agents and sabotage a lot of these. They do some sort of targeted assassinations of terrorists, which probably is a good way to strike fear into those people. Um, uh, that I don't know. I've heard. I mean, there are some reports of like an unidentified gunman shooting it. A lot of people attribute it to the Indian army, and because it's an intelligence thing, we would never know if it is true, it is false. If it is true, that's amazing. If it is false, then I hope that those are the sort of activities that the government carries out, not targeting any civilians and just taking out the terrorist groups or the leaders of that. I mean, we know where Dawood Ibrahim is. We know a lot of elite leaders are obviously highly guarded and protected by the Pakistan military. But if we can develop the sort of talent which can take these people out, threats to the country, it would also be more cost effective and also give us, we don't have to worry about seeing too aggressive in the eyes of the international opinion.
Yeah, and next thing is about the caste census, where we are planning to file a PIL on that, and we posted a draft and got good feedback on it.
Yeah. So the cash census is, it is a bit challenging for us to file legally because you know that in India the courts actually give a wide berth to the legislature to do pretty much what we can. But we will still give it a shot and see. See, a lot of people oppose this. In fact, if you look at it, I think even between the groups of people, between OBCs and SESTs and all, there is always been a lot of discord between them. And I think, as we were talking a little bit earlier today, even the Dalit capitalist Chandraban Prasad, he sees the whole caste war as being between the Shudras and the Dalits.
Yep.
Because it's like, he thinks that the OBCs have claimed an unfair share of the reservations, whereas Dalits have been historically oppressed, but a lot of OBC classes haven't been, and it is just politics. And it is these sort of politics are further going to fracture and keep the topic of caste alive for a very long time. Which is true, and today also people are talking about caste a lot. Caste is so important because there are groups of people who are fighting for government benefits or some benefits or some from the state. So when there is a benefit being given, obviously people will fight over it. They'll say this group is getting privileged treatment, this group is getting privileged treatment. We also want to be included. So it is just people fighting for a share to resources that the government has control over allocation. So the ideal way for us to fix it would be to remove the government from the power of being able to allocate resources. The allocations have to happen via free market, and obviously there they would, at least people would not feel that somebody is giving something to you, right? So if, like, for example, it's your property that you give to somebody, nobody else will have a problem with it. But now the government, and people consider that we're all part of the government, we're all part of the country, our money is being collected in the form of taxes, and how can you only give it to that group or this group? And everybody is fighting it, and there's an absolute mess. There's a lot of violence, and people are literally fighting for the right to be called backward. I mean, for historically, the whole thing is that these people are treating the upper caste, treat the lower caste very bad. There has to be reform. You have to accept it. And now people are saying, like, no, we are backward. We are backward. No, I am backward. I am more backward than you. They want to create all these categories of how backward people are, and it is sort of it is very offensive in a civilized society to see this sort of a thing. And we have to acknowledge that there are some realities to the caste system. There is discrimination, yes, especially more so in rural areas. We have largely seen untouchability eliminated from the cities. I mean, today everybody goes to a street vendor, eats pani puri. Nobody cares what caste is from, whether it is touchable, untouchable, nothing, right? It's just business. You have carpenters, you have Swiggy, Zomato. You don't really care. So that's the beauty of the whole urbanization, and how modern capitalism has made caste irrelevant when it comes to daily transactions between people. A lot of people have moved to the cities and have been able to benefit from the greater economic opportunities being available. So yes, I'm not saying it's 100% eliminated, but definitely the economic growth in the cities has done a really good job. So the government should be
Yeah, and
focusing on
the best
policies like this.
best example that we have of is that of Japan. Japan used to have a caste system as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I just lost that for a second.
Japan used to have a caste system as well,
Yes, yes, there is.
and they
Yeah, and
nobody I would say chastises Japan for its casteism.
absolutely. But though, to be honest, I mean, I think the scale of that in Japan was relatively small because it was just like one community. In India, we had like a very stratified system that went way back. But the only way, see, the system has existed, and it was a social evil, and we had a lot of Indian reformers who worked on trying to eradicate caste. It's not just that somebody from Europe came and said eliminate caste. A lot of Hindu reformers have tried to eliminate caste. A lot of even Hindu religious groups have spoken a lot against the caste system. how do we eliminate it once the problem exists? I think the focus has to be how do we reduce the impact of this? And obviously the main solution has always been markets, because end of the day markets don't discriminate a lot. I mean, personal biases will carry, but over time they'll get equalized. But if you keep giving caste certificates to people, this even after 100 years, nothing will change. If somebody watches the podcast and the discussion that we're having now, and if the things don't change, even after 100 years, it'll be the same thing. And somebody will still come up with an argument then and say, oh, it's only been 150 years or like 170 years since independence. Caste system has been there for 2000 years. So there will never be an end to this, because they don't want to let the actual change happen where we stop seeing people through the lens of caste. At least as an institutional. If the institution categorize people in terms of caste, that divisions will continue. It will keep continuing. Everybody will have a caste certificate, and that will always be relevant, right, in schools and everything, right? So we are just showing a lot of discord between people. We can acknowledge that the problem exists, and we can acknowledge that free markets and and less government intervention is the way to actually solve this problem.
Yeah, and South Africa is a pretty good example that all that appeasement and uh, artificial provision simply don't work.
Yeah.
And the best cultural harmony I think existed when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was in action, and post that all that appeasement politics has resulted in derailment of the South Africa story. It became a middle income country and then simply went off the rails because of all this race discrimination discourse and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you call a group of people and you continuously reinforce the idea that somebody has oppressed you, then I mean, could it be? It could be the same for anything. Like for example, like something happened in the history, but if today every day you keep saying Muslim kings oppressed India, therefore Muslims are oppressors, then it will sort of create a sort of a hostile attitude to them. Same way you keep saying that these upper caste. You can acknowledge history, but you can say because of that even today we are in this problem and we live in this victim mindset. There is no way to get out of it. It will just breed hostility. We'll hate the other group, and overall it will drag the whole country down. I think as an even as India as an economy today, it has to be like a very free economy where these barriers of labor mobility or even this distinction between classes and religions have to be eliminated, because a true meritorious society, I mean, apart from the fact that there are voluntary interactions, people should be also accepting to find people and talent wherever they come from, right? Not just restrain them to a certain religion or caste. So the social change can this social change will only come after the government stops categorizing people. As long as government categorizes people, we will not have that discussion, and we cannot move ahead on that angle, because every day everybody's saying like I have a certificate, I want this privilege, I want this privilege, and it's because of the distribution of privileges people keep fighting.
Yeah, and the second thing that we are noticing, a lot of recent news came out that in Maharashtra someone was being harassed for that bank employees were being forced to speak
Yeah,
in Marathi, and then
yeah.
in Karnataka the event took place recently that the person entered the bank and said with the camera on and was start trying to harass the SBI employees that you need to speak Kannada.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, linguistic politics are extremely bad, and they are going to hamper the growth of the country significantly. I think it is very wrong for even the other day somebody was saying Maharashtra belong to the Marathis, and Bangalore or Karnataka belong to the Kannadigas. So I think this, at least from a libertarian point of view, this is not the way you think about it. Like for example, if I own my apartment, the apartment is mine, but I can't just claim that the entire city which I live in. If I live in Bangalore, I can't say Bangalore belongs to
Yeah,
me and my friends, right? So
yeah.
what you own
How
is what you own.
who is a migrant? Who decides who is in the same country? How can you be the migrant in your own country?
Absolutely, right? So, and even otherwise, uh, people from different areas come contribute to the economy. How can only one group claim that they have some greater claim over the whole thing? And I think this is a very primitive way of
Yeah,
thinking.
we have an accident. Yeah, we have accident free mobility of labor in India.
Actually, so in fact, the barriers for labor mobility in India are actually pretty high. Like considering that we are one country, we still don't see enough migration between different states. So we need actually to see more of that, and only where you see a lot of people from different places mixing together and working together, that is actually where we see the good economic growth. Because talent will flow where there is demand for it, and normally yes, it would flow. For example, a lot of people, migrants from Bihar, construction workers move to Kerala because there are jobs there. And Kerala, for whatever, despite their some economic policies when it comes to the sort of assimilation that they allow the migrant workers, it is actually very progressive. And you will not see you speak in Malayalam or something there. So I think that is a very sort of a progressive mindset to have. And most people also should realize the value that people from other places come and do it. And if people are speaking in a different language, there is no reason to sort of get offended. Like, if somebody is speaking in a language that you don't understand, then you obviously don't interact with them. You don't force them to speak their language. You don't have to speak their language. If you only speak Kannada and the other person speaking in Hindi, you can ignore him, or you can say, I only am going to speak in Kannada because it's the language I know. End of the day, language is about communication. It's not to impose any, to claim that what this language is superior over the other, or there is some imposition. I think sometimes yes, some government policies are a little bit problematic because they seem to be prioritizing one language over the other. But if we eliminate that, I think mostly people will sort of like tone down some of this anti-immigrant rhetoric. But there is always this issue where people feel that they have some right to access for jobs in a certain state. Like for example, somebody might say, see, I'm a Marathi speaking person from Bombay, so therefore I should have a claim on the jobs that come here. But that's not how it works. The person who's offering the job will offer it to the best person who's able to work, who's probably going to give them the best, either best deal, or is going to work harder. The moment it becomes a privilege where it says, because I was born here, I get some sort of a reservation or a right to work here, you obviously there are going to be inefficiencies, and that will drag the whole economy and the sector down. So yeah, we definitely need to get rid of these nativist sentiments. How that can be done by obviously greater awareness among people, and also continuously reinforcing to people that you don't own the whole state or the country. Nobody does. Like you only own the property that you have, and after all, we are all part of the country. So we should not think about such local divisions, and forget even country, right? Even we have people from Korea coming in, or Japan coming in, who are setting up factories. You have a lot of people working there. You have migrants from different countries who come and work in India, right? So what does it matter? Everybody is, as long as people are peacefully living their lives, why should anybody interfere? And we should stop getting triggered over trivial issues like what language somebody is speaking. I think you're muted again, Sushar. You're on mute.
Yeah, there seems to be some audio issue. So those who are watching the live stream, they can ask the questions on YouTube as well. Yeah. Anyway, so Bihar elections are coming up, and the private sector reservation discourse is rising again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, see, that is the problem. Once people start going down this path, there is no end to it. They initially started with OBC reservations. Now, then some more things like EWS came up, something else, something else, something else. And the thing is, see, yes, reservations have had a significant impact, but more than that, it is the fighting over these issues that has created a toxic political environment where the whole discussion is purely about caste and reservations, that on actual policy issues. See, nobody today, there is no political party that says, this is our policy on import tariffs, right? This is actually stifling growth. or even if they support it, no, support it, the discussions aren't about economic values. They're not about, how do we make sure that our cities, which are the economic engines of our country, are better. We've seen in the last few days, I've seen like really bad videos of how Bangalore keeps getting flooded every time it rains,
Yeah.
and now this. And I've seen videos that somebody shared about Bombay also. I think horrible flooding, the literally sewage water. And you're talking about two of the cities which produce like probably billions and billions
Yeah,
of
half a trillion in GDP is in the between these two cities.
exactly these two cities right now. How bad is it that people who are working in these cities and generating that sort of economic output are being treated so badly by not being even at least like basic infrastructure, right? For example, forget about what people say the government should do this, do at least the basic infrastructure should be taken care of, and they have actually failed. Now the I see that, yes, the reservations are a problem, but compared to the economic mismanagement, the impact of that I think is only relatively small. But the discussion about this issue takes up so much of the political debate bandwidth that we are not actually able to have any debate about these things. People are very emotional about reservations and things like that. So if we are talking today about better urban policy, or we are talking about, how to lower taxation, how to remove the impediments that are getting in terms of industries, we are talking about land ceiling, actually serious policy reforms that can have a huge impact on the on the lives of people, those nobody wants to talk about because the political debate is absolutely poisoned by these discussions about caste and reservation. And that has to change. Now it's looking like things are getting much worse because Rahul Gandhi is saying, yes, you are 90%, 80%. I don't even really know what the numbers are, but he's saying you have this claim. We want it in private institutions. So I understand why he is doing it because Congress has absolutely destroyed itself and the country they've destroyed during their rule, and now they've destroyed their party also because again there is a lack of merit in their own party. So even any new leaders, forget the ideology, but even within there they will not allow anybody new to come up. So we are actually seeing an example how the lack of merit is actually
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
just destroying their own political party, and now they want to push those ideas on the country as well. So yeah, so we need to switch that debate from that to actually things that matter. And I think today the Libertarian Party is the only one which is actually trying to focus on these issues. Doesn't matter. I haven't seen another political party that is actually even trying to talk about these issues. They'll pay lip service, but end of the day, they all come down to these politics. They're only arguing about which group gets how much quota. They're not against this whole principle or not even talking about, see, no political party is even saying these are not the issues that really matter to the country. This is not what drives the economic growth. They're not saying that and they won't acknowledge that. So it's a really sad state of affairs. So we have to fight. I think hopefully a lot of Indians today are really fed up with this and all of them join together. See, reservation doesn't even benefit the group of people that they claim to benefit. We had 60, 70 years of reservation. Who are the people who have been benefited by the reservations? They are an elite group within those groups, right? So if you're saying your real aim is to lift the backward classes, it has not done. The reservations of the policy have failed. So let us focus more on the policies for economic growth. Today, like a lot of companies want to invest in India, but they won't because the government policy says that make investment difficult. Or once they invest, they're worried that the economic policies are bad and very unpredictable. So yeah, we need to change back to things that really matter. And as of now, we're speaking it. Hopefully, the people listening to us also feel the same, and obviously support us in our journey to actually make India free for everybody.
yeah. The question is, people say that local government is corrupt. How will decentralization even help?
I'm sorry, I just lost you for a second. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, people say that local government is corrupt. How will decentralization even help?
Uh, yes, a good question. So, local government is also corrupt, but it is actually much. See, today, if you have a problem with a policy, it is much easier for you to actually, if you have a problem with the city, you can, it is easy for you to approach a cooperator than to go and meet Narendra Modi or somebody right there, right? So, when you reduce, and right now, cities also do not have the power, right? You can actually go to your cooperator and petition him about bad roads or something. There will be corruption. There is corruption at the national level, state level, local level. But if the cities actually generate most of the revenues for the country, but their allocation is actually very low. Most cities end up like the bigger cities. I am sure like Bombay probably generates like 60 or even maybe 65, 70% of the whole of Maharashtra GDP, if not more. But what are they getting? And today, if somebody in Bombay even goes to the corporate and says they have limited funding, right? So the amount of work that they can do despite corruption. See, corruption currently exists. The way to fix that will come with greater citizen accountability and transparency that currently we don't have. But as things are now, if there is greater budgets for the cities, obviously the infrastructure will be better. There is no disputing that. We can debate about how much of the money will be eaten away in corruption, and we can talk about ways to actually fix that by using the blockchain, more transparency, everything by default. All the records should be published onto some sort of a website or something. We can talk about things like that. But as it is, decentralizing gives more power to citizens to fix things around their area. In your local ward, if your roads are bad, it will probably people can all get together and talk to the corporator. But as the size of the administrative unit increases, your voice actually has very little power. So if your ward or something has only 20,000 people or 30,000 people, so even a couple of hundred people get together in your area and go and meet your corporator, that will have more of an impact than trying to do that at the state level or even at the country level.
Yeah. Next question is, what's your take on halal? Isn't it anti-libertarian?
No, I don't think that halal is anti-libertarian. I don't think Jatka is anti-libertarian. See, end of the day, you are free to choose a product that you like. Right now, people eat. See, halal is basically a third-party certification, right? So there are companies which go for this certification because they think that they have to export to the Middle East, or for the other reason, it is just that if you go to a restaurant and they serve halal meat for large number of people, it just doesn't matter. But there are few people who are religious who will say we will only eat halal meat. Therefore, to cater to them, those restaurants and all just follow up to it. So tomorrow, if there was a parallel movement, and I think some people have tried it, but it has not been successful because people don't really care that much about that issue. If really people care about it and say, I will not eat halal meat, I will only eat jatka meat, then the market will obviously react. People are just reacting to the demands. If so, it is a very market process, and I don't think the concept of a halal is unlibertarian. It is a religious thing. Some people think that you have to cut meat in a certain way, and therefore that is acceptable according to religion. Some people say something else. Some people eat pork, some people eat beef, some people don't eat. It is fine, to each their own. That is the whole point of individual liberty, is to make the choices that are comfortable and convenient to you, without infringing on anybody else's right. If somebody wants to eat halal meat, what's wrong in that? I don't see anything wrong in it.
Yeah, and those who want to start a counter movement can start their own certification. There is nothing.
Absolutely, I think there's somebody who's already started it, but it is like they have to work harder on it to get more acceptance if they want to push that as being a replacement. So I like whoever wants to do it. Like the markets end of the day is going to decide. The strength of people's preferences matter. So the best thing about the libertarian society, you're free. You're free to say I like halal, or you'll say I will not eat halal. I will boycott halal. You have the absolute freedom to that. You can say I will eat beef. I will not eat beef. I will drink alcohol. I won't drink alcohol. So that is the beauty of a libertarian society. You have the choice to make that individual decision. If a restaurant is serving you halal meat, you have the right to say I will not go and eat at such and such a restaurant. I will boycott it. Whereas in the case of the government, you don't have that option. Your tax money can be used for anything. Your tax money can be used to either take care of maybe give subsidy for the Hajj. It can be used maybe to give funds for some religious institute, could be a temple, could be a church. And also in a libertarian society, you won't have issue where the government is actually taking all the money from the temples and using it like a general kitty. So the temples will be independent and totally freed from the government. So when you talk about religious issues, the libertarian society is really great for anybody who wants true separation of religion from the state. So not a single Hindu temple will be under the control of the government if, under the libertarian party or under in a libertarian society. Let temples be free, let mosques be free, churches be free. The state shouldn't really care if it's a religion or like you want to build a temple for some movie star like they do in some states. Sure, go ahead, do it. Why is the government involved? It should just not care about anything like that.
Yeah, and Prashant has this question that, but this is regarding our mic. Your mic turned off. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Prashant has this question regarding like the requirement for socialism, deranged socialism in the election commission registration. Yeah,
Yes.
there are there are
No, that
loopholes
is
around it.
no,
So
no. So, see, we are constrained by the rules of the ECI and the Constitution, and they say that you have to, if you want to form a political party, you have to sign such and such. There today, tomorrow, if the government says that you cannot drink alcohol in a certain state, or will put you in jail, what are you going to do, right? So you if you don't follow certain things, you will be thrown in prison. So there are ways to fix it, and the party will work on educating the people, and bringing greater awareness. We will continue our challenges in the courts, but as things stand, if we want to form a party, then we have to just sign that statement and take it at face value, just that it is just a statement, like it is just like a ritual that has to be done, and just not take it anything more seriously than that, because end of the day our goals are very simple, that we want to reduce the role of the state in the society. And of course, when it says socialism, if you ask them what is really
yeah,
socialism, what do
yeah,
you really mean by socialism, they will not be able to decide or defend or say anything, right? And in fact, this whole we can also argue that this whole thing about the socialism was never intended by the people who actually worked on the constitution. Ambedkar was absolutely opposed to the inclusion of socialism in the preamble. He said the future people, like, he was right on a few things, he was wrong on a few things, but on this, he was absolutely right. That how can we decide for everybody in the future how they want to organize society, whatever economic system or social system that we want to do, we have to let them choose. If we put everything in the constitution and bind them by it, that is goes against the concept of democracy. And that was a very brilliant point. And hopefully at some point of time, when we actually have more resources, and obviously the previous writ that was filed by the Swatantra Party people and S. Raju, like till he was alive, I think it didn't go. And after that, I'm not sure what happened to it, but it is very likely that the courts didn't really take it very seriously, because the courts themselves have very socialistic tendencies. But we can probably mount a legal challenge in the future, and we can also argue that this actually goes against constitutional values and the values of democracy, because socialism is an economic system, and we believe that capitalism is also an economic system that can actually make people free and promote prosperity. And also
yeah,
we could
and in effect is more social as compared to socialism.
absolutely, absolutely, by giving the sort of things we are giving people the right, to determine their own life, to own
Yeah,
things,
free
on
association.
free association, right? So yeah, so because the government hasn't locked down a definition of socialism, we will argue around it and figure out some loopholes, and also we will argue that the whole concept basically goes against the intention of the framers, because in the parliamentary debates, we have Ambedkar himself saying why he did not want socialism to be a part of it, and this was done later on by Indira Gandhi, and so we
Yeah,
can
so
probably mount a legal challenge once we have more resources, because as you know, we are just starting right now. Our main objective is to gather support from like-minded people and gain more visibility for our ideas. Legal challenges are also expensive, and we will definitely get to that once we have more resources, because we are very serious about this. We absolutely do not support the government's idea of socialism or what they think socialism is. We want India to be free, and we want Indian citizens to be prosperous. And we want everybody to respect individual rights and property rights. These are our guiding principles, and we are going to work towards those goals.
yeah, next one is judiciary reform is need of the hour. Can't have monogamy for majority and polygamy for minority. Apply the same rules equivocally. Yeah, we need to get state out of personal lives. So we support that. Uh, Next one is what about praying on the streets? Is that something that the government needs to be involved in?
Okay, so this is a challenge because, see, ideally libertarians would like to support as much private property as possible, but considering that roads exist and the state has or the city, I mean, obviously it's not going to be the central government, it's the city or the local municipal corporation that has taken over the control of the roads. It is their goal to make sure that the roads are free for traffic, but how seriously they take, I mean, if somebody is blocking off the whole road, then that is a problem. But there should also be some sort of a proportionality. See, praying on the road, I personally think is a very ridiculous idea because you're not generating any economic activity. You're just trying to you're just creating problems for everybody else. You can just like go to the side and do it. I think it is largely people who are trying to do some sort of a drama and gain attention and gain some political mileage of it. So obviously, those sort of activities should not be tolerated. But at the same time, it doesn't mean if somebody is praying on the street, immediately the police come down and start like shooting them or beating them very violently. We should use the minimal necessary force to just relocate them, push them, and put monetary fines for obstruction of traffic or things like that. Also, in a similar thing, also comes up with respect to some street carts and all who are parked on the side of the road. Yes, it does create some sort of a traffic disturbance, but the government also should care about the livelihoods of people. And if there are certain zones, because the state has so much of state-owned land, it can always provide them an alternative zone where these people can continue this economic activity because it benefits everybody. A lot of street vendors, they improve their economic livelihood, and also for all the people nearby, it is easy access to like your vegetables and a lot of things. So both of these basically come a little bit adjacent, but one has absolutely no economic value and is just purely for the purpose of causing inconvenience to others, so should not be tolerated. And the other, obviously, there are you have to look at the ramifications of you have to look at what sort of value they're generating and how much of that you have to balance the interests between both the parties.
Your take on blasphemy laws? Get rid of
Uh,
them.
Absolutely get rid of it. Like, what is blasphemy law? If somebody says, that Batman is, weaker than Superman, I might, if I'm a Batman fan, I might be very offended, and
Or
I will
super.
say, what? Yeah, 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 exactly, right. Your Marvel versus DC or whatever, right? I might be very offended. I might get very upset if you say anything against Rajinikanth in Tamil Nadu. You will probably get beaten up. So everything is blasphemy for somebody else, right? If somebody says there is veg biryani, I personally will say that is blasphemy. How can you say that? But we don't go and start beating up people and start putting people in jail for that. So everybody, we treat speech as the same, whether you want to insult somebody's food or you want to insult somebody's holy figure or you want to draw a cartoon or whatever it may be. We believe that in a civilized society, you have the every right to ostracize somebody for speech. If somebody is saying very uncouth stuff, very using very bad language, you will say, I don't want to associate with such people. This is a person, this is his moral standards, ethical standards. Let's not associate with them. And you're free to boycott people, but absolutely the government shouldn't be throwing people into jail with that. That would be wrong. It is stifling individual freedom and liberty. So yeah, absolutely no blasphemy laws. We want to free speech. We want free speech in Indian society to the same standard or even better standard than what exists in America. America is definitely a gold standard, but on a lot of issues, it can even get much better than that. So yeah, definitely we can start off at least targeting the gold standard, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, next one is gun laws should be relaxed. Gun laws should be relaxed. Yes.
Absolutely. We have just seen in the last few months how it has been. We've seen in the case of West Bengal, where people were actually attacked and killed. And obviously, those people, the Hindu community there, who were in minority, could have defended themselves if they had guns. But today, everybody just depends on the state. And then when a bad incident happens, then everybody feels bad about it, and then they'll say, the state didn't do it. But if history has taught us anything, it is that the state will never protect you. In 1984, it did not protect the minorities. It did not protect the minorities in 2002. It didn't protect them any time in the history. In fact, there was a point of time. This was when the first Indochina War happened. There was this constituency or a village near the border where all the government officers said, we can't protect you. You do whatever you want, and they just ran away, right? So I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that if people had been armed, they could have defended themselves against a very armed Chinese population. But the government will never protect you; it will just abandon you and run away. In the best case, the government will abandon you. In the worst case, they will be complicit in the attack on you, as we have seen. And even in the Pahalgam incident, the terrorist attack, these terrorists scouted a lot of locations. They had actually picked three locations, but they figured the two were very risky because they had armed guards nearby, which is obviously the military, and this one didn't have any armed security. So now imagine if in that resort, like every other person was carrying a gun, then these guys would have been at a greater risk to attack, and those people who died, probably some of them would have been saved. Same thing in 2611, we had to wait for the NSDs and all to come in. If the hotel security had guns, all of them would have at least had some fighting chance. So absolutely, gun laws should be relaxed. There is no doubt about it. There is no debate about it, because the state cannot protect. And somebody also asked, like, what if tomorrow you guys are elected, how are you guys going to make sure that these incidents don't happen? We are very clear on this. Even if the Libertarian Party of India is elected, the government cannot protect everybody. It is impossible. The whole
Yeah,
concept itself is flawed. You can't have one police guy outside everybody's
yeah.
house. There will
People
be a point
people
of time.
confuse.
Yeah,
Yeah, people
yeah,
see
yeah.
it
So
that we are unrealistic, but we are more realistic than anyone else because we realize that government certain things,
absolutely.
there are things the government simply cannot do, and people need to be empowered so that they can solve their problems on their own.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's on gun rights, our position is very clear that every Indian citizen has the right to arm themselves and defend themselves against any attackers. And obviously, the state has a role that's saying when it catches these people, they should prosecute them swiftly, not give them endless, convict them if they are guilty, and this has to happen on an accelerated time frame. So if that is done today, most of the criminals in India are not afraid of the law, not because the punishment is not severe, but it takes them 14 years, 15 years, 20 years. Many people die before they're even convicted. Until then, these guys mostly end up. Some people who don't have the economic power, they are actually in jail for a long time. Innocent people, and a lot of criminals who have the power, they're out roaming free and doing repeat crimes. So yes, guns, we need it. We also need speedy resolution from the judiciary, and I think only that then we can be a slightly safer society.
Yeah, next one is what about the law's involvement in noise control?
Uh, Noise control is definitely an issue, and how do we deal it? So this, I think, has to be dealt with at a very local level, because a lot of things, libertarians can't blanket make laws. It is very difficult to figure out what amount of noise pollution is acceptable or not acceptable by having a centralized authority passing restrictive noise laws. We are disregarding sometimes maybe even local preferences on it. Maybe there are some areas where which are tourist places, and they want to actually encourage even some sort of slightly more relaxed noise levels, because it helps tourism or something. And some places, maybe near hospital zones and all, people don't want it. So I think we should delegate that authority more to the local bodies, so that when even the local people will have more rights to go and petition. Maybe 80 decibels is acceptable, maybe 75 decibels is accepted. How can anybody decide it? Let the local bodies be more empowered to frame these rules, so that the individuals who stay in a certain area will have definitely more power to handle these sort of things.
Yeah, next one is Congress government conducted forced castrations. What's the boundary on government's say on bodily autonomy, like forced
I,
vaccination, abortion, etc.
I'm sorry, what did they do? I missed the first part of it.
Congress government conducted forced castration, like the
Oh
during the
yes, yeah,
election.
during the Indira Gandhi government, absolutely, that is very wrong. It's a horrible crime, and it is unfortunate that nobody got thrown in jail. I think they should have been locked up for the rest of the lives for what they did. Libertarians absolutely support bodily autonomy. That means no vaccine should be forcibly injected into you. You want to take it, you take it. You don't want to take it, you don't take it. But absolutely, we are opposed against any sort of violation of your body in any way. What you want to put in your body is absolutely your choice. It should not be the role of the government to tell you what you should put or what you should not put into your body.
Yeah. Anyone else has any question? See, our takes are not that. I mean, so how is any of this controversial? Isn't this common sense?
Exactly, I know, right? Unfortunately, it is that the political debate and what the governments and the political parties have been doing for all these years. It has become absolutely so crazy that today, if we are talking about something that is so obviously common sense, a lot of people are like,
Yeah,
okay, wow, this is
we haven't even gone into the hardcore libertarian
we have
stuff
not
yet.
even gone into the hardcore. We are just saying, dude, if somebody wants to eat something, let them eat it. If somebody wants to have a beer, let them drink it. Why you want to educate people, educate it, but why are you just creating like so much problem? And suddenly that becomes such a controversial thing
Yeah,
in today's.
we are just in the liberal territory. We haven't even entered the libertarian
Yeah,
territory.
yeah, we are in the proper liberal territory. We are not even going
Yeah,
into the much more hardcore stuff. So yeah, but it is a sad state of affairs that the governments over decades have created this sort of an environment today where if a restaurant wants to sell a water bottle at a certain price, immediately people say, "Oh my God, that is looting. That is this."
yeah.
Some guy went to the High Court against multiplexes because that guy was pricing popcorn very high. Like, imagine how as a society we will become where we think that a popcorn in a multiplex is actually an issue that the government should get involved in. And
Yeah, any problem comes, the government is supposed to do something.
absolutely, and
Complete utter lack of imagination on people's
and
part.
forget the imagination. It is that they're looking around and you're seeing
Yeah,
like bloody in Bangalore, you're seeing flooded roads and Bombay, sewage is floating outside on the street. A government can't even do the basics. And today you want them, forget the moral principle involved. You think that they're going to regulate all these things in a proper way. And whenever they try to do something like that, they end up harming the consumer interest. In fact, why is popcorn so expensive in theaters? Because in most parts of the country, there is a price cap on the ticket price. So and so that
and
means that
additionally, I'm to say how ticket economics works is the most of the share is taken by the producers and distributors.
absolutely. And also, once you cap the ticket price,
Yeah,
which happens in a lot of places, then you have to generate additional revenue from somewhere else. So you are basically pricing the popcorn or the the other food higher.
yeah, and
Uh,
in those cases, though, they don't seem to care about the wages and the salaries that the employees get because of those prices.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, people today, if a popcorn guy in a multiplex after spending, imagine most of the multiplexes are in areas with prime real estate worth like, tens of crores, and they
Yeah,
spent like so much on investment. And suddenly, if that guy sells popcorn for 100 rupees or 150 rupees, it's like crazy. But considering that the government will just like charge 50% of every liter of petrol you have, then
yeah,
nobody will say loot. Nobody will say loot. The amount of outrage that people actually show on businesses in India, which is the sort of a socialist mindset we have imbibed in us, if that 5% of the outrage they went and protested against the government for the amount of loot that they're doing, that is the actual loot, right? Who is looting us? It is the government that is looting us. So if they just misdirect the energies on that, I think we will at least those guys will try to be a little bit more accountable.
yeah. So I think we are nearing the end now, and anyone has any more questions left? So, or we'll end this. We'll do this on a weekly basis, mostly on Thursday. So
Absolutely.
you can ask your questions, and we'll be uh, happy to reply to them. The Swatantra Party platform advocated for free markets, limited government, and individual rights. Are we getting these guys involved?
Yeah, we Swatantra Bharat Party, right?
No,
Yeah.
Swatantra, simple Swatantra Party.
I'm sorry.
Simple Swatantra Party.
Okay, no, I'm not familiar with that party.
We'll get in touch. All those parties who share our platform and ideas. We are full support of that. We aren't interested in getting into power as much as ensuring that the right ideas, right public discourse takes place. So next is what taxation policies do you favor?
Uh, Taxation, we want to reduce taxation as much as possible.
Zero.
So whatever,
Zero. Best
what
tax is zero.
yeah, best tax is zero. Yeah, but considering that we have a state that is supposed to take care of the defense right now, therefore it has to be funded in some way. So right now, before we can actually move to maybe in the future a very voluntary model of funding, for
Yes.
now taxations have to shrink as little as possible to fund the bare minimum. That's it. So our policy is going to be that not a single tax increase ever, only continuous slashing, slashing, slashing to as efficient and as little as we can do to make sure that the basic roles are met before we in a very distant long term move to a purely voluntary method of funding even the minimal state functions. That is definitely will happen maybe, but in
Yeah.
the long term future. But
Also,
for now,
there are alternative means of funding, like something like war bonds.
absolutely, absolutely. Self-defense. I mean, even like, if you actually start looking at the military as like a security service,
Yep.
then, obviously there is the free rider problem. But, I think, see, when we believe that, the state is going to be so prosperous under libertarian society that very small single digit amount of taxation, even though we would want to move to a voluntary model, most people would not really complain about it. See, a lot of people from India go to UAE, and there was a point of time where the taxation was like almost some low 5% or something, and then nobody really cares. People go to like low tax countries, and even in Singapore, the tax rate is low, so they don't really complain. So I think the amount of prosperity that using free market principles will bring to the country, and the amount of reduction that will happen in the taxes is going to be so drastic that people would then have other things to think about, and we will be working obviously on alternative models to make sure that we transition to a fully voluntary society. But for now our goal is we're going to slash taxes massively, like no more
Yep.
of this looting 50% of your fuel cost, your continuous GST, income tax, this tax, that tax. We're going to just like start cutting down. We're going to cut down all the wasteful schemes. So see, the main thing is you can only cut taxes if you cut government spending, right? So there are only two, how we reduce the taxes, which system is actually less important than what parts of government spending we're going to do. There are a lot of freebie schemes. We are absolutely going to get rid of that. And,
Yep.
you know, uh, yeah, I think that is our policy. Just like reduce loss of government wastage, lot of government spending, and obviously there is a very parasitic class today in India where people, the economic growth of the regular citizens is not growing. The wages are not growing very fast, but the government has this one parasitic class within it who's always looking out for their interests. They get all the pensions, welfare benefits, automatic pay hikes, this commission, that commission in the private sector. If the economy is not growing it, you don't. But how come with the money that is being extracted from us, it is going to fund this government class? And we are absolutely going to cut that. We're going to trim that. It's absolutely going to be fuera. It is going to be like Javier Milei with a chainsaw. We are going to cut the government literally with a chainsaw. That's what's going to happen here.
Yep. So yeah, the last question for the day is India is community-based society, not an individualistic one, like the US. How do you propose to adapt and spread libertarianism in India? I would disagree with this assessment. A true community-based society is Japan is the example. India is much more individualistic than it is taught in social studies classes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely I think this is just largely got to do with mindset. Historically, also, I mean, communities do matter. I mean, an individual, we believe in rights at an individual level, but nothing is going to happen if people don't come together as a community. And by community, we are not talking about just like divisions on basis of caste or religion. When people who live together, even within a gated community, it is called a gated community. So we believe that by when we start decentralizing, we'll see a lot of people, who are locally going to get active and who are going to work for the betterhood of the people around them and the territory that they're in. And that is how we plan to do it. I mean, we don't see this as a conflict in values. I think the problem in India largely has been more than this community or anything, has been how we think about the role of the government and how we think about socialism and how we think about capitalism and profits. That is actually the biggest barrier. But once we shift rights to an individual basis, then people will anyway still come together. People even today associate in various groups of political, philosophy, ideology. Nothing wrong in that. People have to come together as communities to make change, but the rights are only applicable to individuals at an individual level.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it will be the end for today. Thank you all
Yeah,
for joining.
yeah,
We'll be back next week. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
एक मिनट क्लोज